Hey, Spartan fans, welcome into this latest edition of the Michigan State Spartans Insider Podcast. I'm your beat reporter for Michigan State Spartans on SI, Aidan Champion, and I want to get into some basketball talk. Haven't talked about it in a minute, but as I always say, it's always fun to talk Michigan State basketball, and can't necessarily say the same for football, at least for me, just because of where this program's been at in recent years. Recently, with fall camp now starting, it has been fun to get into hypotheticals and talk about, where certain areas that I think are going to be improved. Um, and how things have come along throughout the offseason and where they're at now um and talk about all the promise that this football team is um that's in front of them, because I do think, as I said, I think this team will be improved, but basketball talk, there's no matter how bad, or I guess how bad the outlook is on Michigan State basketball, it's always something something interesting you could talk about because they can always be in the running for a Big Ten title as long as Tom Izzo's there. You've always got a fighting chance, and I think that's the case this year again. But I've said before, I don't anticipate them to win the Big Ten to repeat. I do think, however, they'll be in the top five. I think they'll still be fighting among the best in the league, but it's definitely going to be a much more challenging season for a couple of reasons. One, just the schedule overall. I mean, this is going to be a tougher schedule than last year, and on paper, that was a better team. Right off the bat, you're hit with a really tough non-conference schedule. We've already, gone into all that and discussed where what a realistic expectation is for how that non-conference schedule will go. And I think it can go well for the Spartans. It does help that some of those games are at home, but and then you go right into Big Ten play, and the Big Ten is going to be even better this year than it was last year. And it's yeah, it's going to be tough. Uh, and how the question of how suited is this team for that challenge remains to be seen. I mean, you've got kind of a split down the middle between really great experience, um, four key guys who come back from an Elite Eight run, and then Trey Fort, who's got a lot of experience, but yet also a newcomer. And then you got a bunch of guys who hardly saw any time at all, if any. Um, like Kurtang, um, hardly saw much playing time, and then Jesse McCall, redshirted, didn't play at all. And then Divine Ugochukwu, does have some valuable experience, some starting experience at Miami, but uh, that was a really bad Miami team, and you kind of take that with a grain of salt. Um, he's a guy, still he has yet to, develop. Obviously, he's only gonna be a sophomore, and but so that's a big challenge too. Is kind of that spectrum of experience and inexperience. But there's one glaring thing I think is going to be the biggest challenge that this team faces, and that's how you're able to bounce back from adversity, how you deal with adversity. We saw last season there was really only one stretch where this team faced true adversity, and that was when they lost three of four. They dropped the two games out west. And then, I mean, there was adversity in that Oregon game too. Come back, sizable deficit at halftime, and then completely flipped the switch. One of their best games of the season, at least in terms of second half. Of course, of course, that was the Jace Richardson game, and in front of the the 2000 national title team in front of his dad. What a cool moment that was. That's something I'll always remember. But I mean, you could have lost that one had you not had the burst you did in the second half. But so you're looking good after that, and then Indiana. That's a game you're feeling good off of the Oregon game. Tom Izzo's got a chance to break the Big Ten all-time wins record against the Hoosiers and Bobby Knight's team at home. And Indiana, remember, was not a great team, and they were facing a lot of complications at that time. But and then Michigan State shockingly loses that one. So then you were in a major hole there after there was a couple months there you hadn't lost a game. The whole month of December and January didn't lose a game, which is remarkable. And then right away, February was not looking good. And that road game against Illinois, that was pretty much a must-win game. And then you're trailing at halftime in that one. Another epic comeback. Um, and uh, and that, that was the turning point in the season. Finished the regular season on a 7-win run. But I don't think you're gonna have the same kind of success this year. You're gonna have more moments where your backs are against the wall. A lot like in past years. Um, Even with some of the best Michigan State teams in recent years, there's always those stretches in January, February, where you're kind of questioning if this team can make a run in the tournament. And then, they pull it all together in March. Um, and I think that was one of the most surprising things about last year. They didn't need to do that. Their best basketball was down the stretch, winning 7 straight games, winning the Big Ten by 3 games. But like I said, this year, I think you're gonna kind of fall back to that where you may drop 2 or even 3 games in a row here and there. The question is this team built to answer that call, to bounce back from adversity? And we know the 4 guys, Jeremy Fears, Jackson Kohler, Cohen Carr, Carson Cooper, all were part of that success last year, key parts of it. So they may know how to respond to it, but do the rest of the guys as a unit, um, what's going to happen when you do run into those tough stretches? Because I'm sure they're going to come. They're likely to come as soon as non-conference play. And how can you kind of climb out of that hole? Um, I don't have an answer. I'm just this is something I'm throwing out there as what could be a huge question facing this team is how they respond to adversity. I think they got great leaders on this team, the 4 guys I mentioned. Um, Colin Carr is going to have to be a little more vocal. He said he's working on that. But you got a great leader in Jeremy Fears, and then Jackson's a great leader, and he's even more so his strength is he's a leader by example. He's the hardest worker in the room. He's got a chip on his shoulder. He's more determined. You see him get more mad at himself than anyone. Um, and so he takes everything to heart. That's a true competitor. Um, Carson Cooper, I think he's on the right track, but a guy who that's going to be his next step is stepping into a leader role. Um, and I think, based on what he's said, that transition is going well. He's helping out the new guys. This is year 4, so he's well familiar with everything. Um, but when you look at it that way, you got four great leaders there who can step up in those moments where you gotta kind of balance that the anger um, and the you know looking at something that's wrong, saying this is unacceptable, can't do this anymore. Um, you gotta find the fine line between the aggression and the positivity. Hey guys, we got this. Um, next game mentality, flush the last game, learn from it, why not? All that um all that cliche talk. But yeah, you gotta find that balance in those moments. And I think, like I said, I mean, you do have great leadership on this team, and that was something that last year's team had. And that was something going into last year that they were searching for, that they had lacked in recent years leading up to last season, and then they found it. Um, and I think that, we talked so much about how last year's team was so close. And I'm sensing that there is chemistry already with this new team. Um, but in those hard moments, that is something else you got to lean on is how close you are as a team. That's going to be huge and being able to get through those times. So, uh, you know, that's, I think overall, that is the biggest concern that this team is going to have to deal with. Can they bounce back from adversity before, things kind of get out of hand? Um, like I said, don't necessarily have an answer. I think they could be able to also see a world where they can't. Um, it's all going to be how close they are and how these leaders are able to step up, and then how the younger guys, how mentally mature they can be in those times. So interesting thing to think about uh, as we're in the thick of the off season for Michigan State basketball right now. But let me know, what do you all think? Is this uh is this something to be concerned about with this team? Because I think it'd be a little naive to assume that this team is not going to face more adversity than it did last year. So yeah, let me know. And and I hope you're all having a great start to your week here. We'll be back at practice today, football practice. And as always, thank you everyone for tuning in and very much appreciate your support and engagement. You can find all of our content on Michigan State Spartans on SI, giving you tons of daily content. And we very much appreciate you following along with us. So thanks again, everyone. And again, hope you're having a great week. Thanks.